Well,
Um,
Elliot, you've probably been more closely involved uh, with the legend of Superman than anybody still alive at this point. Do you
well,
think?
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, take us through some of the early days uh, in terms of how you got involved with writing comics and writing Superman stories and other superhero stories. Um, just briefly, because then I want to get into the Superman as a paradigm for both AI as well as the troubles that we're having in our country.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was always enamored of Superman myself, just like Crypto. Um, he was the character who I pretty much modeled my values after since I was a kid. I always said that truth, justice, and the American way is my personal Torah. Um, that's law in Hebrew.
Sure.
Um, I we brought a bunch of old comic books up to a little clubhouse we had in Waltham, Massachusetts, when I was at Brandeis. Um, we had a tutoring program going on for the kids who lived in a housing project in Waltham, and the kids just read them and threw them out the window and chewed on them and did whatever they could with them to destroy them. So I went out and started buying comic books again, and I realized they were better now. Um, so as a term paper for a class and on the media, I wrote a Green Arrow story, and I got a B plus on it, and I thought it deserved an A, so I sent it to Carmine Infantino, who was the publisher of the comics at that time, of DC Comics, and Carmine didn't read anything. He gave it to Julie Schwartz, who was quite a bit more literate than Carmine, but he didn't read anything either. He passed it on to an artist, a guy named Neil Adams, who said, "No, I don't want to read it." And he just picked it up and read it in the subway on the way home, and came back the next morning and threw it on Julie's desk and said, "If you buy this, I'll draw it." So that's what ended up happening. Julie drew my Green Arrow. Julie bought my Green Arrow story, and Neil drew it. And at some point, a month or two later, Julie leans over his desk and he says, "You think you're ready to write a Superman story?" And I lied. I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's the most difficult character to write." I said, "Okay." And I believed that for years, until I realized it wasn't the most difficult character to write. It was just the character you needed to take an approach other than the approach people were taking with other comic book characters. Superman requires a certain premise. Any Superman story does. You have to start with the premise, with the question, what would I do in this given situation if I've got all the power in the world? You know, everybody else who's tackled the character, first thing they did, it seemed, was depower him or throw in kryptonite or something and make him weak. But the most effective Superman stories are those that give him a problem to solve, and he's strong anyway. He doesn't have to get weak in order to solve this problem. He has to make a moral and ethical decision. So I wrote a story called "Must There Be a Superman?" And that was 1971. I was about -8 years old at the time, and I was the same age as you, I guess. Yeah, and it was a hit.
This song is dedicated to the people of the world and all its inhabitants. We've got to learn to live together. and care for each other.